Hello, everyone. Welcome to Progressive HR Live. I'm your host, Kareen Woodman-Hallowbeck, founder of Progressive HR and a LinkedIn top voice in company culture. We are here today with Alex Kouchev, Gen AI expert at Workspace Innovator. Alex reviews Gen AI and AI at work, and his posts and his creative videos offer us views into the latest innovations and connects HR and AI. Well, actually, HR and tech. How are you today, Alex? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Karin. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for joining us. So please go ahead and let us know, audience, who you are and where you're streaming from. And if you have any questions right away for Alex, go ahead and add those into the comments. I have a question for Alex. We're going to start off with that. And then I'm going to bounce over to you guys, introduce you guys, and go ahead and ask Alex your questions. So Alex, my first question to you. In a recent post, you had wrote, "The tech world waits for no one." So that's a really bold statement, and I found that really, really interesting. Please give us some more insight into why you wrote that.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioned that, Karin. Well, I've been working and following the technology industry for a number of years already, for over a decade. And in the span of this past year, I'm just really surprised to see how fast everything is progressing. Think about it. Just last year, we saw the first Gen AI technology to generate videos. And last week, I think OpenAI released a new model, Sora, that generate like 4K high fidelity definition. It's very surprising to me. It's shocking at the same time, right? How fast can we go and how fast the progress is leading us. Things like technology life cycle doesn't exist anymore. I feel like in the past we used to plan a software we were building software for a few years ahead. But right now, with all these latest updates, especially in the AI industry, we just see releases after releases happening on a weekly basis, right? So to that example of the video generation tool, just over a year ago, there was a funny video of Will Smith eating spaghetti, and perhaps someone in the audience saw it. And it was just ridiculous, we were like looking at this and the video wasn't making much sense, And right now we have like, again, 4K high fidelity videos being generated from text to the point that some filmmakers or some studio owners have actually paused their investment into the studios to expand their studios because they are saying, okay, what's the point? We will have soon those models coming.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that things are happening so fast, it's really hard to you're either completely behind the curve or you're ahead of the curve in the sense that you're looking into investments, but then you know yourself that there's kind of not a point to it, but there's going to be something completely new that's going to disrupt you coming down in the pipeline, and it could be any day. And that's the crazy part of it. So we're going to go really quickly to our audience. We have a comment coming in, and this is from Charlie Hills. Oops. There we go. Looking forward to an exciting discussion. Thanks, Charlie, for joining us. Glad you could make it. So if you're new to Progressive HR Lives, go ahead and let us know who you are and where you're streaming from. It is an interactive conversation between me and Alex and yourselves. So go ahead and pop those questions into the comments, and we're going to have this really great discussion about Gen AI, its opportunities at work, the challenges, and the ethical considerations. So Alex, on to my next question. And this question has to do with your post that you launched today, which I thought was really, really interesting. I mean, I think all your posts are really interesting. It blows my mind, the information that is coming from you, because I consider myself like a tech evangelist or a techie. But I mean, the stuff that you come up with, I'm like, where have I been? I've been hiding underneath a rock. So it's like you're my tech guru that I wait for your post to come out every day to see what's completely new. It's like you're almost like going to TechCrunch, the TechCrunch.com, and reading the latest tech news. So in today's post, you talked all about the future of talent acquisition and AI, and how the future is really today, because what you predicted or what you said is going to happen is actually happening now. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good question, Corinne. See, I follow a number of influencers in the HR and in the tech domain, and I think that's where I'm able kind of to blend and all this information together and digest based on my own understanding, because I've been myself in the function before. I mean, I've been doing HR for the past 10 years, to be honest. And what I came to realize now by looking at all this technology that is enabled through Gen AI is that we're entering the era of what I call hyper personalization, of the content, right? We're able to generate different experiences. And that is, can be reflected in the tools like AI avatars, right? I remember, I think 4 or 5 years ago, first AI avatar company got pushed their models to the market. And when I inquired before, they were telling, if you want to build your own avatar, it's going to cost you $1,000. To Not so long ago, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I tried a new different platform which allowed myself to generate my own AI avatar for less than $25 per month subscription. Okay.
Wow.
And so this technology becomes so much more accessible to anyone. So in my post, what I was trying to explain is that, especially in hiring, right? In order to make a difference, you need to be able to sell your company. You need to be able to sell your job advert, job position to the best talent out there. And there is no better way to do it if you really know what the candidate expects from your organization, right? So we're sitting on all these amounts of data, and nowadays the technology enables you eventually to come up with a personalized response back to those candidates, right? And that's where I see generative AI can help, is by going and providing this, personalized content that will grasp the attention on the social media feed or somewhere else, to the right talent, and we are able to source accordingly. So yeah, that's some of the insights that I noticed by looking at what's happening overall on the market today.
So who do you think, I mean, do you think that there is a company out there that is already kind of working on that? Do you see some rumblings in what you're looking at about who could potentially be best suited to bring that technology out?
Well, there are a number of pioneers, I would say, overall in the market, I believe, that are currently pushing this type of technology. And it's small companies, I would say, but so far it seems like these are founders who have experience, and especially that they understand the opportunity behind, right? Because all this technology is eventually coming from B2C. Uh, when you look at your Instagram feed and you see, like, the algorithm is able to detect, okay, what type of things you like, what do you like to buy, on regular basis, or Amazon as well is pushing you to some, suggestions to or recommenders into your basket. So same actually is now coming into B2B world, right? And all this recommended technology coupled with Gen AI and hyper personalization, be able to generate videos on the flight, be able to generate, text and messages on the flight. All these eventually can be well coupled together to deliver that personalized message that can grab attention. So we're talking about hiring, but we can also talk about the same on the onboarding, right? Imagine when you have a new hire joining the organization and they are greeted by the CEO with a personal note. In a small startup, yes, the CEO can record their own message, right? But if we are talking about huge enterprise, imagine the power that it can deliver, where you will have like a CEO of a large company just coming and for all the new hires can deliver personalized message. I think that we will see tremendous amount of investments happening in that domain in the next few quarters.
So what you're basically saying is that technology, AI, Gen AI, large language models, small language models, avatars, you could create a system where the CEO records a number of different messages, or basically just has the system kind of take a snapshot of his or her face, and then AI could generate different videos for different diverse groups of people, or just very, very personalized, just the one person, if the person has entered in their preferences. Similar to the video that you posted about the gentleman from Iceland who was deceased, and then someone created an AI video that put his face on a character, and then, I mean, it didn't go off well, let's just say that, but I mean, that's a sample of something that could be done. So going back to my question, so what you're saying is a CEO could sit down and make one message, and then the AI could basically personalize it into hundreds of thousands of different messages for onboarding?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think onboarding is just one tiny small example, right? I think when you think about L&D, learning and development, that's where the tremendous value can be as well, delivered, is because imagine how long it takes to actually go and prepare all these video materials, e-learning, and so on. So I spoke with a number of people in the L&D domain, and they are actually proposing tools nowadays that allow you to build that personalized content, across the functions in an organization. Hyper personalized content for finance, with the case studies that will be applicable for them, and things like that, right? Because we all have different type of skills, right, depending on the function we work. So let's give an example. If I need to explain my employee handbook, right, I might actually explain it in a different way to someone from finance than to someone from HR, than to someone who is a mechanical engineer working on an oil rig, right? But that hyper-personalization, I think, can happen with the generative AI coming as a tool, to help to deliver that content.
And just a funny little thing that I wanted to mention here is that doesn't necessarily have to be the CEO. It could be like Taylor Swift, or it could be Shakira, or it could be someone Elvis, for all facts, and I think that is kind of quirky, but also interesting. So like the world's kind of our oyster. But we had two questions coming in, or two comments coming in, that I wanted to quickly go to. And this question is from, and I apologize if I am not pronouncing your name correctly, but is it Yegor or Yegor? So from Yegor, how can professionals best adapt to the new reality of Gen AI revolution to stay competitive in a workplace? And then an add to that, let's say sales or marketing managers.
Okay, good question. I think ultimately the skill set or the expertise comes by practicing. So as far as you can find the use case of something that is, highly manual task for you today, that you're spending tremendous amount of time, try to understand how you can find more automated ways to do it, right? It doesn't mean that Gen AI is the answer for everything, right, of what you are doing, but you will learn how to address your pain points now by utilizing Gen AI. Because who is the best copilot or training copilot nowadays? It's actually ChatGPT. We saw a number of edtech platforms literally crashing on the stock market since ChatGPT got released. Why? Because those businesses don't have such a high potential anymore. I can go to ChatGPT and ask to help to write me some Python code, or some Excel formula that is so stubborn that it was taking me 30 minutes, to navigate on Stack Overflow before to find out, right? And I can get it in a span of 30 minutes. So really, I think, Corinne, you watched Super Bowl, right, last time?
Yeah.
And I think there was Microsoft that had this brilliant ad, where they advertised Copilot to people. And it was saying, yeah, now, as you said, the world is your oyster. You have a personal assistant available that can teach you how to do things better. And I think that's the mindset that people need to adopt. Previously we were all going on Google, finding answers, and navigating forums. Now the first reflex I personally have is to go on ChatGPT and try to help me to solve a problem that was taking me a tremendous amount of time or effort to solve.
So I really like what you said is like it's a mindset change, because I know like a lot of people have a lot of fear still around AI, and it's not. I don't think the fear is that. And I was discussing this with Marnie Robbins and Troy Vermillion last week or 2 weeks ago. Last week, on one of the special lives we did, is that I don't think it's necessarily a fear that AI is going to take over jobs, because we know that that's just media hype right now. The fear is getting it wrong. So here we have this big opportunity available to us, but we don't have the mindset of curiosity to go in and to try these different things because of the fear of getting it wrong. What do you think about that?
Well, there are some fears that are justified, I would say, still current, right? And we see it notably with the fact that if the data is secure or if it's not secure. We saw, in fact, this technology being used, to do things that I would say shouldn't be done, right? And for the wrong purposes. So I think ultimately we also need to be conscious that if you use any of these public domain tools, and I will call them like public domain because they are free to use really, and you start to put in sensitive data in, then most likely you are kind of training these models behind the scenes,
Mhm.
right? So as the world becomes more aware about the privacy, and we all, are very much want to keep that privacy in place, of course, you need to be mindful about what data you actually feed into the system, especially if you are in the HR domain, right? So there are, of course, fears, but I wouldn't say the fear is justified in terms of going and using, right, the tool itself. Why? Because I like how some of these, people who are the founders of those companies explain GPT, generative pre-trained transformer, actually also stands for general purpose technology. And for me, fearing now Gen AI is like basically fearing electricity a couple of centuries before, right? I mean,
Wow.
or like to say, I don't want to use the internet, right? Because the technology is already there. So if you don't adopt it, then you will be a laggard. That's for sure. Because someone who knows how to use it, they will be much more performant than you. Okay, so it's been proven. There are some academic research that has been proven. That it's been proven by the companies as well, BCG, McKinsey, and so on. So yeah, you just need to know how to use it right, I think.
So if you had a crystal ball in 2 years, what would work be like with the help of AI and generative AI?
Okay, good question. So again, all things that we try to project are going to happen in 5 years. Coming back to where our discussion just started, they're coming so fast, so it's kind of very difficult to make an accurate prediction, right? Because perhaps a year ago I would say we will be in 5 years we will be able to do videos, but actually in 1 year we're already able to generate videos. But if I have to look just in the next 12 months, then I see really a rise of what we name AI agent. So it's automated verticals that are delivering workflows within the business. And yeah, there is a tremendous potential, for AI agents, for example, for sales. So we saw some agents that are able to make, I don't know, 10,000 of calls simultaneously in 50 different languages, and to just speak like me and you right now, and conduct transactions, right? We see a great potential in the technology to answer customer support requests. Of course, everything needs to be tested before being deployed in production. As an unfortunate example, I think happened last week with Air Canada, who actually
Mhm.
got sued for their chatbot because the chatbot said, well, the customer could get a refund, but there was no actually policy that could attest that they were entitled for this refund, right? So that also shows that sometimes some organizations are perhaps going way too fast because they have maybe the pressure of the shareholders to deploy this technology. But ultimately, I see great potential in the AI agents, and that could be in different domains, in finance, in HR, in sales, in customer support, and so on.
Do you think that out of all of the professions, HR has the most to gain from using generative AI?
I I think, okay, not to downplay the role of HR, but ultimately I felt like, because I was for some time working in HR IT, and I followed you as well, Corinne. You had a number of guests last time from HRIS as well, attending team, which I want to say hello as well, perhaps on the streaming if he's watching. Uh, but yeah, the role of HR is, it has to be, employee facing. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, sometimes HR tools, I feel they might be extra complex, right, to use for someone who is coming from a non-technical background. Okay, so let's give you an example, right? HR now relies so much on data, and we need to build like visualizations, reports, statistics about the demographics, gender pay gap, diversity in the workplace, and so on. And it can be a really daunting technical task, right? So that's where I see ultimately Gen AI can be of help, because you don't need to learn tools like Power BI, Tableau, right? Or even some of these Excel formulas. You can leverage, let's give you an example, ChatGPT code interpreter to help you to generate beautiful graphs. And later you transfer those graphs into a nice PowerPoint, and you can go to the founder or to the CEO and present your stats and tell a story behind the data, right? So I see really a great advantage in that sense, where all this, heavy technical lifting can be removed. And especially HR, we are so good with words. So using natural language to interact with the tool, I think it's just a blessing.
So, and I've been seeing this a lot lately in conversations that you, if you're tech savvy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're AI savvy. So, could we say that someone could be tech savvy or AI savvy, or tech savvy and AI savvy, or just AI savvy? Because I know HR has really been lately, last few years, asked a lot to be more technology driven, to be more aware of technology. But I mean, AI is a technology, but if what I'm getting to say is that technology savvy doesn't necessarily mean AI savvy. And so you could have somebody in human resources who's very AI savvy, but not so tech savvy. And do you think the conversation is going to change a little bit going forward?
Well, good question. I ultimately see, as you say, right, previously AI domain itself was a very scientific domain, right? Let's be honest, like to deploy all these models that we see today, to be able to configure, to train the algorithm, you needed like a PhD degree, right? But the technology evolved so much, so right now it became just super accessible. What is ChatGPT? It's basically a conversational interface on top of this large language model, the foundational model that OpenAI created. So um, I still I still consider that, if you don't want to really build all these foundational models, then maybe you don't need all this, understand all that technical jargon, because the technology out of the box is already so good to be used, right? So I think ultimately what will matter is just to be tech savvy in the way, understand where technology can help you, but you don't necessarily need to put additional burden on yourself to understand, okay, how does the transformers work? How do they break down, words into tokens, how they're able to predict the next word and things like that. Unless you are like super geeky and you like it, then of course go for it. But ultimately right now, it's more a matter of understanding what tools are available for you, how you can use them together in your workflow in order to be productive. I think that's what matters the most.
It's funny that you say that because I had a flashback to, university, excuse me, I had a flashback to university and I failed, or I didn't fail, I got a D in IT science. And because I was like, DOS, what is that? Like, I'm not going to work. Like, how is this ever going to happen? Be worthwhile in my life learning DOS. But now people consider me to be tech savvy because I talk a lot about emerging technology. But in IT science, I'm like, so it's interesting that you say that. We got a quick comment from the audience. It could be a question too. Of course, Marnie. Marnie, hi. Thanks for joining us. Marty says, love his question, and Alex is so right. With prompting and training of AI, tech savvy is just part of it. There's learning how to have a conversation with AI and practical application use. Thanks, Marty, for the comment and adding your insights to this conversation. Greatly appreciate it. So we talked a lot about, switching gears really quickly, we talked a lot about the opportunities. And I know that while we were talking about the opportunities, you did mention some challenges in there. But I want to go directly to the question about the challenges. What are the main challenges of working with AI that we'll have to overcome?
Well, I think ultimately AI is not a magic stick. It's not because you have the tool that enables you now, to do brilliant stuff that ultimately it will solve all your problems, right? And one of the main problems is still the quality of data, I think, in the organizations. And HR, as no one else, we sit on tremendous amount of data, but is, I would say, kind of sometimes difficult to quantify, right? Because everything is more like a labels that we append, to define our workforce, right? It could be job codes, organizational units, some other performance metrics, right? Everything is so much based on the language. So sometimes the quality of this data is really poor. So I think even before implementing any tools to help you, you need to go back and look, how does your data looks like? And you can actually use these Gen AI tools to help you to achieve a better and higher quality, in your data. But if you want to start really drive analytics, and prescriptive insights and that layer of personalization, you need to have a strong data foundation. And I think that's where some of the challenges actually reside for many, many organizations.
Thanks, Alex. I would also add in, and I posted about this today, about bias. Is that as we look at technology and the way that technology can help us, we really need to look at like I think it was Troy that said this last week, garbage in, garbage out. And so how can we rely on technology to help us if we're still trying to get over our own biases that eventually ultimately hinder us? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. That's very important aspect to take into consideration, because let's face it, like those algorithms have a certain degree of bias, right? And I think so far just New York State has officially enforced a legislation that enforces the companies who use automated tools in the hiring processes to publish external audits about the algorithms that are being used in their hiring processes. Okay, so definitely sometimes it's a black box. You use these tools, they help you to select candidates, but you're actually not sure about what type of logic has been put in those tools, right? And as we see, those tools learn from the data on internet and from the data that we humans are generating. So I think it's very sensitive topic. And I think last week, actually, slightly outside the HR topic, right? But Google received backlash about their image generation tool because actually they were trying to reduce the bias in the image generation tool by generating, I would say, more diverse representation in the portraits, right? But actually, they kind of trained the model slightly too much to the degree that it started to produce an efficient, I mean, inaccuracies, historical inaccuracies completely. And it was shocking because you could ask, generate me a picture of a German soldier from 1943, and then you could see images of African American people, or or Native American people as well being generated, or even Asian people in the uniform, in the Nazi uniform, and that's like completely shocking how a tool like that can be put in the hands of the public, So big backlash happened, yeah. And Google is currently revisiting on how they deploy these models.
So it's really interesting because a little segue here is that I was reading your newsletter, and I saw the commentary that you made about the Google and the pictures of the very diverse Greek philosophers. And the first I thought was, oh, this is really interesting. And then I thought about how historically, through the system, the people who wrote the history books were mainly, I don't know, it's like just not a generalization, but white colonization. And that they wrote them where there was no diversity in certain aspects. And how do we not know there wasn't a Black philosopher? Or how do we not know that there wasn't an Arab philosopher? Because they did say a lot of Egyptians were Black Arabs. And one of the smartest people, some of the smartest people in the world back in the civilization were Egyptian. So how do we not know? I thought it was I know we're getting completely off topic here, but I thought it was very interesting. But I will say that there were Black Nazi soldiers back in Bavaria. So there's a movie about it, and I'll go ahead and send you that movie. But yeah, it was an interesting example that you brought up. But to the point is that I think it was interesting that they received backlash, but we don't really know who are we to say.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, a word of caution still there, like, remains, right? It depends how we use these tools. I think that's where it's important to remind each other is, like, if you didn't have a good intentions, then you can bypass all the guardrails and generate something that can be can really upset, or can in fact distort the context, I would say, where it's actually initially designed for. So I think it's not so much the tools that are in fault, of course, but it's more the people and how they utilize those tools.
That's a fantastic response to what what I just said. I think you're so knowledgeable. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to pop to one of the comments that we had coming in, and this is from again, apologies if I'm not the pronunciation, but Tej. So absolutely, Alex's insights are spot on. It's not just about being tech savvy, but also about mastering the art of interacting with AI effectively. The practical application of AI in day-to-day tasks and the nuances of conversational interactions are key areas for exploration. So great comment, Tej. Thank you. All right, Alex, so we got about 10 minutes left. And so we have been talking about, the opportunities, the challenges, and the ethical considerations all kind of mixed up in one. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about if you had something specific other than what we're talking about in the flow of our conversation. What are the current ethical considerations for AI, and will these change in 2025 and in 2026? What do you predict?
Well, I think ultimately, especially for people in HR, it's very important to be on the lookout about the legislation. what is happening, right? Because we might have some sets of tools that we utilize at, in the organizations, right, that utilize algorithm, but the legislation comes in and we need to also understand how compliant we always are with those tools. So the legislation is catching up, right? We saw, as always, I think in our world, we release things and then only then there is some kind of control and preventative measures or guardrails that start to be implemented. I can talk about the EU in particular, right? There is a EU AI Act that has been approved by the European Parliament recently, and the legislation will start to get enforced progressively, I think, in the next 2 years to make sure that the foundational models are compliant, to make sure that the technology is being utilized for the right purposes. No such things as social credit scores and other things, you know, that can where it could be potentially utilized, but definitely it's something that European Union is looking to frame very well. And then, of course, on the United States, there is as well a task force. I think not so long ago, I think last week, the Congress announced the creation of a task force, bipartisan task force, to also look more precisely on what can be done to regulate this technology, because we see the rise of deepfakes. There is, of course, some concerns with the elections coming up on how all these, you know, can be utilized and potentially influence humans' decision-making processes. So same happen in the organizations. I think we need to be, again, very cautious about the data, about the access to those tools, and as well the processes in which we implementing them. We need to think of it as not a replacement of human decision-making process, but rather an augmentation of what we are doing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. I don't have the ability to do the digital thumbs up, so I'm doing the digital thumbs up and like the digital heart and the smiley face that goes up. Oh, we just had a comment come in, so I'm going to go to that comment before we kind of finalize everything, before we have to say goodbye. And this is, let's see. So Yegor, speaking of risks, speaking of risks, how will we know which AI tools are safe to use in terms of data safety? Thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, I think ultimately there is no like 100% guarantee. Well, you know, Corinne, like there are like always these terms and conditions that we always click accept, but we don't necessarily spend time reading because it's just too long. But now I think we have an opportunity, because you can literally copy paste those terms and conditions from one tool to another and ask it to summarize it and tell it what are the things to look out, right? But as again, of course, we know that there are some tools that just simply, I will call them API wrappers, that are built on top of foundational models such as OpenAI is proposing, such as Google is proposing, or even Meta is offering. But yeah, I think ultimately try to see the background of the company, if they're reputable founders, if they have a solid architecture, if they have solid backers, and if you really want to put your personal data in, then make sure to do your due diligence really throughout the process, understand what is the company, who are the creators behind it, what type of tech stack they are running, because yeah, there could be leaks, and no one can guarantee you that, right? We saw even tech giants having, you know, accounts being hacked and password being leaked and so on. um, I would say just be cautious. Again, you need to make sure you don't put any sensitive information in those tools, right? And use it just after doing your own research.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even afraid to do the verification from LinkedIn because I don't want to send them my driver's license. That's why I haven't done it yet. I'm very cautious if anybody is asking for my driver's license information. Um, you laugh, but I want to keep. But I'm the type of person that's going to hit the check mark on all the terms and conditions because I just don't want to have to read them. I want to get to the tech, adding the app or the tech really quickly. So before we go into my last question for you, Alex, and I believe this is Tej. Again, apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly. While these concerns may evolve with advancing technology, it is essential to anticipate and adapt to emerging ethical changes. Yes, agreed. Thank you so much for your insights on this conversation. Yeah, thumbs up, digital thumbs up. All right, Alex, everybody knows that this is my absolute favorite question to ask all my guests. But what HR tech platforms are you analyzing right now and why? And what are your favorite HR tech platforms?
You're asking this question, but of course I'm biased, Corinne, right? Because I'm working with ADP, right? Today I'm speaking as a passionate outside my, I would say, day-to-day scope, day-to-day work. But yeah, I think ADP is just a great organization, and we're celebrating 75 years, of history this month. So, and we had some public announcement made in regards to Gen AI. So I invite anyone to go and read the press release. There was an ADP assist being released recently, and yeah, we have a press release online, so I invite anyone to go and read about it more into details.
And then Tej says ADP is a good tool. So lots of agreement there with you. All right, everybody. So we're getting to the end of our time. And so I wanted to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for everyone who's watching today. I know that we had a large group actually watching, actually lurking and watching, but and just so enthralled in our conversation, Alex. I think that they were so enthralled that they didn't make a lot of comments. But then we did have a fair amount of people that did make comments and did have questions for you. So thank you, everybody, for involving yourself in this conversation. If you wanted to learn more about what Alex is doing, go ahead and connect with Alex on LinkedIn. And please, please, please subscribe to Work Edge Report newsletter on LinkedIn, which is Alex's newsletter. This is where I get a lot of my information. And so Alex is a daily poster. And so it's just so much information about technology and AI, especially in generative AI, coming at you. Please go ahead and connect with Alex, follow Alex, and start conversations like this, amongst your networks. Please share this live if you think that anyone in your network would have any interest whatsoever in what we're talking about, or that they're looking for some edutainment and some more knowledge on Gen AI. So wrapping up here, a little bit about next month's Progressive HR Live. Our guest is Troy Vermillion, who is the client executive with Highland. We're going to be talking about modern employee benefits and really kind of well-being over the course of 2024 and how that's evolving. And then I wanted to say thank you again to everybody. Thank you, Alex, for being my guest. So much great information. And I mean, you're blowing my mind. So greatly appreciate you.
Thank you. The respect is mutual, Corinne. I've been looking for your podcast for many years now, and it's a great pleasure to be invited as a guest. And yeah, looking forward to our fruitful discussions.
Thank you, Alex. All right, resourceful humans, have a fabulous Tuesday, and we'll see you next month.